welcome everybody who's joining us today. We're very excited to have former women's basketball standout Aisha Foy, and we're very excited for today's talk. If you guys have questions throughout, please feel free to type them in the chat box. If you are watching on Facebook, you can type them in the comments there, and I'll be sure to ask them towards the end. So I will turn it over to you.
Hello, everybody. I am super excited to be sharing, and I'm super thankful that Radford, asked me to share with you guys. I graduated 4 years ago, so I'm not that far removed, but I do think I have a really good message to share with you guys. Faith over fear, how to live a purpose-driven life, right now we're in some times of uncertainty. It's been a lot of uncertainty, and this is something that I have been really diving into within myself, and I'll get into the details of that later. But I'm gonna kind of give you a framework about how I kind of found my purpose, and then and kind of how to use this time in quarantine, or we're kind of getting out of quarantine, but just use this time in 2020 and looking toward 2021 and beyond, to continue, living on purpose, or feeling like you are, contributing to the world. And thankfully, I kind of got that start with myself at Radford. Radford was really, really good to me, and I'll explain that later in the presentation. If you have any questions, feel free to write them down, save them to the end, or put them in the chat, whatever the case may be. I'll give my email out as well at the end. But again, thank you. Honored to speak with you guys, and I'll go ahead and get started. So, faith over fear, how to live a purpose-driven life. So we're going to talk about today. So about me, my name is Aisha Foy from Virginia Beach, Virginia. 757. I kind of claimed the whole 757 because I lived in a bunch of different cities and went to school in a bunch of different cities. But I played basketball for Radford, 2012 to 2016. It was a really, really great experience. Played basketball all my life. When I was young, my whole goal, my whole purpose when I was young was to get a scholarship. So I ended up getting a scholarship at Radford and making the best out of it, maximizing that potential that I had, maximizing the opportunities, what I'm going to kind of talk about now. I was very involved on campus. I didn't just see myself as a athlete. I wanted to maximize every aspect of energy that I had. So I was really involved. I was in the sorority. I was in the business fraternity. I created a leadership development organization on campus. It's called Independent Women Achieving Goals in Education, and it's still going on. Now I created it I co-founded it in my senior year, and it's still going on. I'm very proud of that. I love leadership, love higher education. Leadership development. I love everything about it. Basketball was kind of my way to finding, my true, I call it my obsession. Basketball is my passion, but, my obsession is like leadership development, higher education, and like teaching other people how to maximize their potential. And my dream job is the job that I have now, director of recruiting at the University of Kentucky. And I work with the women's basketball team there. So living a purpose-driven life. Some people look at living a purpose-driven life as like, oh, that's something fancy, or it's a luxury, or it's just not something that everybody should do, or something that's normal. It kind of, in my discovery and in me living, I've realized that we have a fundamental need to live our highest potential. If you've been to college and you took that psychology 101 class, you've seen the Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And in that hierarchy of needs is self-actualization. Can't say that word, but I'm gonna use it. Can't say it, but I'm gonna use it. And basically, like, it is a fundamental need to live your potential, to have purpose. And here are two quotes from him that I really liked and I thought it was relevant to this topic is that if you plan on being anything less than what you are capable of being, then you'll probably be unhappy in all of your days of your life. And from my experience, that's true for me. And then another thing is what one can be, one must be. So basically, like if you have the potential to do it, then you must do it to really live your highest potential. Really, just be happy, just fulfillment. So that's the basis of what we're going to talk about. And I'm all into research, so feel free to just Google Abraham Maslow and kind of study his work and like what he talks about motivation and purpose and stuff like that, because it's some really good stuff and some really eye-opening stuff. Next, so 5 ways to start living a purpose-driven life. I'm gonna walk you through my college experience using this framework here. So the first one is get into an environment. I'm gonna give you an overview at first, and then I'll walk you through my college experience. So get in an environment designed for positive thinking and growth. That's one reason why I love higher education, is because it's so many opportunities, so many things you can do, and you can just it's designed for you to succeed. It's designed for you to think bigger than the way you've thought before, coming from wherever you came from in high school or whatever the case may be. Embrace that you have way more to give. That's the second thing. Once you realize that, we talk about right now with all the social justice going on, we've been talking about like white privilege and things like that. But, I think everybody has some sort of privilege. So kind of like identify your privilege. It was something, it could be a gift, a talent, a friend, anything in your life that you can identify, that you have, you can just point that out. And that's going into number 3, identify something that have been given to you that can change the lives of others. So once you embrace that you have more to give, now once you identify it, now you can start giving that to other people, and now you can start thinking about ways to kind of put that in action. And that brings me to my next point, putting your purpose into action to see if it's real. And this is kind of like, you're in that dreaming stage, and it all feels good when you're in that dreaming stage. And I'm, man, what can I do? Oh, I want to give back this way. I want to give back that way. But you don't really know your purpose. Really, this comes from my mindset and what I think. You don't really know your purpose until you put it into action. So, I'll give you an example later. But once you kind of have that thing where you think, oh, this is my purpose, put some action behind it, then you know if it's real. Live your purpose daily. Only act in ways that serve your purpose. So once you have solidified, and this is the 5th thing, live. That's the hardest thing to do. All the other things, they're not easy, but they're like the first kind of steps. Even putting into action. You might do it a few times, but living your purpose daily, every single day. That's the hard part, and I'll talk about that a little bit later as well. But only act in ways that serve your purpose. So that's the overview of what we're going to talk about. So number 1, get in an environment designed for positive thinking and growth. So when I was a student athlete, I got recruited and got on campus. I was like, dang, it's so much. It's so much to do. So it doesn't matter if you're in college or not in college. One thing you can do to put yourself in that environment is to think about who you're spending time with. Think about what you're watching on TV. Think about what you're listening to. Anything. Just be intentional about getting into an environment, because that's a shortcut. Because society is not set up for us to think like this. So if you're intentional about getting into an environment, then you can help your mindset. You can kind of get that growth mindset. But that, like I said, that's only step 1, because we all know, like, once you leave an environment, you go back to your old ways. So let's first be intentional about getting into an environment. And for me, that was going to college and getting involved on campus. And I had an SWA who, Stephanie Belen, she works at Virginia Tech now, but she was our SWA, and she was very intentional about helping me just get me in other places. Even being a student athlete, you can still kind of get stuck in a bubble, but she helped me get into other spaces that keep elevating me, keep challenging me. So that's number one, getting an environment designed for positive thinking and growth, and that has to be intentional. The second thing is embrace that you have way more to give. So one of the environments that I got into was I went to a leadership development conference. I was in SAC, which is a Student Athlete Advisory Committee. It's for student athletes to help like make change to athletic departments and the conference and stuff like that. So I went to that conference, and that is like when I realized that I was kind of like going through the motions. If I had to rename this number 2, it would be like never get caught going through the motions. I actually should have named that, never get caught going through the motions. So when, going through the motions is kind of what life is designed naturally. I'm gonna go to college, I'm gonna get a job, I'm just gonna live a happy life. You know what I'm saying? Just the regular, going through the day-to-day, the mundane. So once you embrace that you have way more to give, you will you'll kind of like look at life differently. So that's number 2. Look like somebody had their hand raised. I'm more than happy to answer questions in the middle, if we could.
I think they may have hit it by accident because nobody has their hand raised right now.
Okay. All right. Cool. Okay. So once you embrace that you have way more to give. So for me, I realized that I was kind of I wanted to be a leader, but I wasn't giving myself to the process of becoming a leader. So when I got in that environment, I heard a speaker, and, I realized that, dang, like I could be giving way more to my team. I can be giving, just more of myself. I could be more open. I have way more than what I have been given. And, when you're in society, kind of like gets us in like suppression mode, where we get like self-preservation, like we're worried about what other people think and things like that. We can't do that. Once we embrace that, we have way more to give. All right. So, now, I'm going back to my own college experience. Like, now that you embrace that, now that I've embraced that I had way more to give, now I got to identify what it was, right? So for me, I was listening to a speaker. His name was Sam Mohami, and he was the founder of Samaritan's Feet. And Samaritan's Feet is an organization that raises money for kids to have shoes. And he was the founder of that because shoes like changed his life. And literally, like, because of that he won a pair of shoes, and because of that pair of shoes, he was able to get a scholarship. He was able to come to America and go to college. He was able to just change his whole life because of a pair of shoes. And in that moment, I was like, dang, like I have no reason to be acting like I can't do more for people. I have no reason to be acting like somebody owes me anything, because the way I grew up, people consider me spoiled or whatever the case may be. But, I kind of grew up like never wanting for anything. Any pair of shoes that I wanted, I got. Anything I wanted, I pretty much got. My parents paid for AAU basketball. I had personal trainers. I had any SAT prep, those classes, all that type of stuff. The extra stuff, I always had that. My family is just so supportive. I have a huge family. I have like the best huge family ever. So I had all these things. So I had to identify something that I could, help other people. So and that one thing was about the shoes. And I was like, wow, like a pair of shoes changed his life this much. Like, dang, I have to do more. So, and another thing was like love, hope, abundance of just like support. Those are things that I had that, I won't say that I took for granted, but I didn't realize that everybody else didn't have that. So that was a way that I could help, change the lives of others. So the next thing is, put your purpose into action and see if it's real. So when I was in the environment, identified, I embraced that I had more to give. I identified, what I had to give. I heard him speak, and while I was listening to him speak, I said, wow, like, I want to do a fundraiser for this organization. It's called Samaritan's Feet. So once I got back to campus, it was my sophomore year. I had the opportunity to, I didn't know how I was gonna do the fundraiser, but I made a promise to myself. I said, I'm gonna do this fundraiser. I'm gonna raise these funds. And if you knew me growing up, like, I hate fundraising. I hate asking for money. So the fact that I was like ready to do a fundraiser, something had to happen to me. Ready to do a fundraiser, and also like, just go all out for something that does not benefit me in that one bit. So I got back to campus. I didn't know how I was going to do the fundraiser. Thankfully, like in my marketing class, I was in a sports marketing class, and then we had a project, and our project was to it was at a basketball game. I played basketball as well, but we had to do a promotion at a basketball game. So the promotion that I chose to do that fundraiser. And I had a team, and it was a group of us, but it was kind of like my idea, my vision. So like I had to kind of like push it. I had to have we did a men's basketball game, so I had to have a meeting with the men's basketball coach, trying to get him on board. I had to, talk to the cheerleaders, getting them to like cheer barefoot, fans, asking them to donate, and to like, some people participated and coming to the game barefoot. It was like this really big thing that we did. And it was just like, it was so electrifying. Like, it just felt so good, like, to do that and to see it, have a vision of something and it come true. So that was kind of like me putting into action. And once that was over, I was like, man, like, this is how I want to live. Like, I want to live for other people. I don't just want to live for myself. So with that being said, I'm rewind a little bit. A lot of times we might get in a good environment. We might watch a video that's really motivating. We might go to a speaker that's really motivating. And when it's time to, and then it ends there. So now when this event happened, probably November, December, and I had heard the speaker, it was in July or August. So, fast forward months later, I'm this moment is still going, because I didn't just stop at step one. That's why, you gotta put it into action and see if it's real. So, and then even like the rest of the time I was on campus, I just kind of like dedicated myself to like just trying to do more for others, to be involved in things like that. My idea was, if I was to take basketball off my resume, would it still be worth anything? And, and that was kind of my goal. I wanted to do enough that if basketball went away, I would still be good. I would still have a shot at getting a job. I would still be able to say, this is what I did while I was at school. But with that being said, just, it can't just stop at that motivating moment. And, this process, it was difficult. It was like, you got to have all these meetings, you got to do all these things. It's easy for the emotional part, the inspiration to fade. That's why it's so important to put it into action. And that's how you see if it's really real. So number 5 is live your purpose daily, act in ways that serve your purpose. So like I said earlier, this is the hardest part. And from that moment that I had and that experience that I had my sophomore year, I was like, I need more of this. You know what I'm saying? Abraham Maslow also says that, living for your purpose is like soul, is oxygen for your soul. It's not just like, it's not a nice to have. Like, once you experience it, And once you like really, really, feel like you're on purpose, like when you're not on purpose, it is like the worst thing ever. And I'm gonna talk about that later as well. But so live your purpose daily. And the way I did that in college, it was like just seeking ways to get involved. I was a freshman orientation leader on campus. And, that was an experience on its own that helped me. And, that's literally for helping. And what that is you're helping the freshmen coming in. You spend a whole week, you spend a whole summer basically dedicated to learning everything about the campus and learning how to be a good mentor, learning how to speak, practicing to play. You do all those things. Getting ready for the freshmen to come in. And so that was one of the things. So now I want to make it a part of my life. You know what I'm saying? I don't just want to do this one event. I want to make it a part of my life. So I continue to seek out the ways. I thought about ways, how can I give back to my teammates? One thing that I did, I'm a huge fan of Kobe Bryant, and I heard that he had bought his the freshmen or the rookies in his world, all the rookies, he would take them out to dinner. So one thing I did, like my senior year, I would take the freshmen out to dinner. I would take the freshmen out to movies. And then, like, sometimes I would just, pay for everybody. And that year, my senior year, we had a lot of freshmen. We had 5 freshmen my senior year. So it wasn't like 1 or 2 people. And I would just make sure that I, like, poured into them. And that was, like, kind of ways. And I wrote all of these things down because you forget. Once you get in the regular life, like, you forget. So kind of making purpose, like, your decision-making, that makes life a lot easier. And also, when I was a freshman orientation leader, I met one of my best friends, Kevon, and he did a lot on campus as well. But he was like the most focused person I ever met. And he was like just really focused, and like meeting him and seeing how, he didn't party, he didn't do any of the normal things college students do. He just was like, I'm going to the library, I'm doing this. So then, like, once I met him, I was like, you know what? I want to be like that too. Like, I want to be, he kind of helped me, like, get more focused and kind of be like, all right, I'm not gonna be partying like that. I'm gonna just focus on what I have to do. So, and this is the hard, like I said, number 5 is the hardest part. That means you make it daily. You start making life-changing decisions based off the way you operate when you get into number 5. So, like I said, it's like it's soul oxygen to living your purpose. And so from about 2013 to 2016, I was like full go, all into my purpose. Just, I had my goals. I wanted to be a graduate assistant. I wanted to, one of my goals is to move to New York City, but the biggest thing I wanted to do was be a graduate assistant for women's basketball. So in 2016, I graduated. So I'm going as hard as I can as a student athlete, as a student, a leader on campus. Been going hard as I can, going as hard as I can. And then I reached my goal. And it was kind of like, faith is like not knowing. Like, faith is like going without knowing. So I reached the goal and I actually knew. So I'm like, oh shoot, I'm here. And that whole experience, and I was a graduate assistant at Southeast Missouri State, which is in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. I'd never been there. Did not know who I was about to go be around. Did not know anything about it. But I was, that was, part of my career path. So I went there, and the crazy thing is I was doing exactly what I wanted to be doing. Get my master's degree paid for. And, but, I developed a whole lot of anxiety, and then that anxiety led to, like, depression, depressive moments and things like that. And I was still okay. But I was not living like my purpose-driven life. So, like the end of 2016, 2017 was like the worst year. And the reason was because I got off track. So, and it wasn't like, I started I was still doing the same things. I was still excited about my job. I was still, um, listening to motivational podcasts, reading books. I was still doing all of those things. But because I had reached the goal, it was like, now you start trying to think like a adult, or start trying to adult. Okay, now I got a job. Now this is what's next. This is what's next. And at first, it didn't matter what was next. I was just going, trying to live my purpose. So um, that's kind of what happened there, and I kind of had to reevaluate my thought process. It wasn't really nothing that I was doing that made me get off track, but it was my way of thinking and getting off purpose, or not being motivated by the purpose. Kind of like, burnout. People burn out. I think I heard a quote. It might have been John Gordon that said, "It's like you don't burn out. You just get off purpose," or something like that. But I do believe that's true, because when you're on purpose, when you think about your purpose, like, it doesn't matter what you have to do. Like, you can't burn out. You got all the energy in the whole world. Like, I'm gonna get this done. But when you get off purpose, that's when you kind of be like, dang, like, you run out of gas. So right now, so the great pause. This is where we are right now. So we're kind of getting out of it. I heard Mel Robbins. She wrote the book 5 Seconds of Courage, and or the 5 Second Rule. It's a book about courage, and I heard her on the podcast, and she called quarantine the great pause. So I thought that was pretty cool. So that's kind of what I was calling it. So in times of uncertainty is when your faith get tested. So kind of going back to me, having the worst couple years, or having the worst year or two, after I did find after I did like reach my goal, then I got my dream job. So now I got my school paid for. Now I kind of got my dream job. Like, this is a job, like, I was in Dr. Ayers' class, and he made us like write out what we wanted to do. And I literally wrote out verbatim my career path, and like, here I am, like, it's here. And not only was I in a job that I wanted, the job didn't exist before I got there. So it was like in my perfect skill set. So it was kind of like adjusted, like to fit like my skill set. So my dream job at first coming out was like a director of operations. But then as a graduate assistant, I found out that I wasn't really good at operations. I'm good at like, talking to people and stuff like that. So, kind of got changed. But like, being a director of recruiting, I'm working in my skill set. So either it was even more perfect than what I could have written out. And I still was struggling, because now I'm working. Is a whole different mindset than being a student, when you're doing things because you want to do them, and then when you are when it's your job. So it's just a different frame of mind that you got to adjust yourself to. So I started my job May 2018, and now here we are 2 years later. And even having that job, I still felt like I was like missing something. Like, I'm like, what in the world? And then I would like write it down on paper. I'm like, this is exactly what I want to be doing. What's happening? So the great pause happened, and this has given me a chance to kind of get back on purpose. Even though we can't be around each other, I've been like doing a bunch of masterminds, a bunch of like professional development and stuff like that. And it's allowed me to like really pause and like get my frame of mind back on purpose the way it was in 2014 and 2013 when I was at Radford. So back to that original framework that we was talking about, and kind of like what I did, is giving me a chance to get back at that. And, and I challenge everybody listening is, even though it's kind of over, not really, but like, how have you used this time to reflect and to think about, your life? So 2021 and beyond. So basically what I've come to realize, during the great pause, what I come to realize is that your purpose is not your purpose. It's not about, it's not about your job. It's not about your job title. And it's not about any of that, even though those things are cool and those things are good things to kind of have tangible goals. Tangible goals are very important, don't get me wrong. But at the end of the day, it's not about that. It's about, three things I kind of came up with, like faith, family, and legacy. Having faith, I believe in God, I believe in Jesus. So making sure that I'm like kind of staying in the word and things like that. But no matter what you believe in, hopefully you believe in something that's bigger than you. Whatever the case may be, just something that's bigger than you. Family, remembering to engage with family, talk to family. That though my family is the reason why I got to college anyway. So remembering, kind of never forgetting where you come from, but not even to that sense, just remember what actually fuels you. And then legacy, knowing that, what you do now is way bigger. What you're doing now is way bigger than like some tangible thing right now. It's like about leaving a legacy for other people. Another thing to kind of help is like develop a purpose statement and set new goals. Like I said, 2020 is a good time to just like think about, what you want your life to be like, and to realize what's really important. A lot of things that we think about, a lot of things that we, society gets us to think about, like money, fame, social media followers, like that's not really important. So develop a purpose statement and set new goals during this time. And then another thing, daily self-care routine, take care of your soul. I mentioned about like mental health and things like that. And self-care is not about, going to get, pedicures and massages, stuff like that. It's literally about just making sure that you're good, like making sure that you are doing things to fuel you. Because what matters if you have a job that you want and you're not happy, or you're not taking care of your soul. So these are three things to kind of think about going from 2021 and beyond, and things that we can kind of use this time to reset and to think about, and to make sure that we have systems in place to like take care of ourselves and things like that. Any good company, they have systems. The reason why things work well is because of systems. So take care of yourself, have systems for yourself. Don't just, go, go, go. Because that was me as a child. Me as a child was go, go, go. Wherever we had basketball practice, whenever it was a game, whenever it was a tournament, that kind of set my schedule. But like now as an adult, I got to be like, okay, you have to develop a system for yourself to make sure that you can perform, because the stakes are high. You got a real job. And even then, as a student athlete, even though I was really busy, but I still had a schedule with something else set in my schedule. So take care of yourself in that sense. And anybody have any questions, I'm open to answer any questions or anything like that. But I really appreciate anybody who's taking the time to hop on here. I think it's really important to make sure you are living in purpose, because if not, then it could get tough.
Absolutely. So if you guys have questions, you can either raise your hand and we can bring you on and you can ask your question in person, or if you feel more comfortable typing in the chat box, you can do that as well. I did have a question come in, and the question was, you have talked about a lot of, you had a lot of quotes throughout. You talked about books that you've read, but what are some books that you recommend for people? Or maybe some podcasts, you talked about those as well that you listen to.
Okay, cool. I got some for you. I was afraid of that question a little bit, because like, if you can like see behind me, like I have a whole lot of books. But actually one book called The Purpose Driven Life. That's a good one. A book that really got me like focused was 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Just the preface, like, is it could be a boring read because it was written so long ago, but the principles about purpose and keeping first things first, though those are really they're timeless principles, and that's kind of what kind of shifted me. That book right there. The Go Giver is a good book. Let me look at my podcast. The School of Greatness podcast um, by Lewis Howes. That's a good podcast to listen to. Hold on, let me look because I live by these things. School of Greatness podcast, Lewis Howes. The Entree Leadership podcast, Entree ENTRE Leadership. That's a really good podcast. I like Gary V. He's kind of like, for our generation, he kind of talks kind of crazy, but he's a guy that's really on purpose. Impact Theory by Tom Bulow. He's really good. And then Brendan Burchard, his podcast is really good. Another book, this is a really good book as well, is this is kind of like High Performance Habits, but the book is High Performance Habits. It's kind of like Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, but it's more, newer. It came out 2017, but High Performance Habits by Brendan Burchard. That's a really good one. That would be my go-to. Everything I just named would be Brendan Burchard, High Performance Habits.
Awesome. Another question was, who was your biggest influence? Maybe from your time at Radford, but then maybe just in life in general.
That's a tough question too, but that's cool. So I would say one would be my mom, because she just kind of, she was a good role model. She is a good role model for me. A lot of times, like my leadership development thought process and like just serving other people, like I like to think that I'm just like a really good person. But I saw my mom just like serve like throughout my entire life, like the AU teams that I played for. She was the co-founder. She was the founder and the director of the programs, and so I just kind of like the way she is for people is like kind of engraved in me. Another person that was a big influence for me. I have a lot of people that was a big influence for me. Just to preface that, but in Radford in general was Stephanie Boleyn, the senior women's administrator. She kind of just like, she saw something in me, and she just kind of invited me to a whole lot of different places. She signed me up for leadership conferences. She kind of was like my champion while I was a student athlete, and just like, knowing that, it's more than just basketball, and just kind of getting my foot in the door with like athletic administration, and just like knowing that was a career path in general. And then I would say, last person I would say it would be like Felicia Hall Allen. She's a sports agent right now, but she does motivational speaking. She works with teams. She was I heard her speak when I was in high school. And when I was in college, she worked for Nike. Her resume is crazy. She worked for Nike. She was an executive for WNBA team. So, but like I said, I heard her speak in high school, and I remembered, how all speakers say, if you ever need anything, let me know. Then I got to college and everybody was talking about networking. And I was like, oh, okay, I need to network. Who do I know to have connections? And I remember her, and I remember her saying that she worked for Nike, and I remember her saying that she worked for a WNBA team. So I sent her an email. I was doing my junior year or sophomore year in college, and we kind of met up, and we kind of formed a mentorship relationship. So she's been my mentor, and she's kind of helped me get my foot in the door, kind of where I'm at right now in my career, and just exposed me to a whole lot of different people in their profession and things like that. But that relationship, I do want to say that relationship came from me volunteering my time, and she has an event, and I asked to work her event. So I do want to say, like, when it comes to like mentorship and stuff like that, like as the mentee, you have to have something to offer as well. And you have to be willing to do, to kind of do anything to get in front of them. She lived in Charlotte, and I drove to Charlotte to meet up with her. So, but she has been a really, really big influence. And I'll say even one other person. So my freshman year at Radford, I was we was at the tournament, and we had a speaker, and our speaker, her name was Susan O'Malley, and she worked at she was the first president of an NBA team and a hockey team. She was a president of the Washington Wizards, but it was the Washington Bullets when she was a president, and she spoke there, and she just kind of like her energy, everything about her was just like, man, like you can do whatever you put your mind to.
Right.
And like, even though I only had one interaction with her, like she kind of like just opened my mind to like, you can do anything. And she also said, she said, if you know how to fundraise, I remember her saying this, she like get internships. And she said, if you know how to fundraise, you'll always have a job. So she kind of like got my mind around doing internships and stuff like that. And then I went up to her after the presentation was over, and we stayed in touch a little bit. But she's not a professor. I don't remember what school she's a professor at, but she's a professor helping students get their foot in the door with sport management. But she was a big influence, because once I seen her, I was like, okay, I can do anything I put my mind to, career wise.
Absolutely. Yeah. I just had another question. And you did talk about it a little bit, but what kind of advice would you give to someone who hasn't necessarily identified their purpose yet?
Kind of that framework that I talked about. So number one was getting in an environment, and if you don't know your purpose yet, it's completely fine. You know what I'm saying? It's not, but just being on a search for it. So getting in an environment that's designed for growth. So, listening to something motivational, just to get your mind thinking about it. Your purpose could probably just hit you out of nowhere. But if you're intentional about getting in different environments, talking to different people, and then, and this is kind of another way of kind of figuring out, is like, what are you good at? And what problem do you want to solve? What's a problem that's like, say for example, like, say if I wanted to, start a food bank or something like that, you know what I'm saying? Like that's a problem that I want to solve, and say I was good at, I don't know, say I had a lot of connections with, people that worked in food, or um, people that had restaurants or something like that. So you got to identify something that you're good at, and as well as like your experiences. So, but like I said, like it's a whole process. So my advice would be to continue to search for it. Don't beat yourself up if you haven't felt like you found it yet, but just get in environments. That's the biggest thing, because when you're around people who are on purpose, you start thinking differently. And so that's kind of what I would say. I'm working on a book right now, kind of laying that out. So hopefully when it's done, it'll have all the answers.
So
But
that's all the
that
questions.
framework,
That's all the questions that I have, but I'll let you finish what you were saying.
no, I'm just saying that framework is kind of like what I'm writing about in my book. Was the framework that I talked about here, is about getting on purpose. Any other questions?
I think that's all the questions I got. I'm just going to take a second and plug our next webinar. We have Michael Clegg next week, next Thursday. He's going to be talking about how to stand out in your job search. So definitely join us next week as we can connect with Michael. And then if anybody has any future questions for Aisha, how can they get in touch with you?
I see one here. Someone said, what's some things, I don't want to miss out on anybody
Oh, I missed that.
while we're right here. They said, what's something that you learned working at a larger school, such as Kentucky, that you didn't know prior? I would say the biggest thing that I learned working at Kentucky is like one, like working with other people. Um, the way people work together is really important. Is this quote saying, if you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, um, you know, go bring a whole lot of people. Something like, I don't remember exact quote, but work with other people if you want to go far. But you know, having processes in place, and really having strategic plans to reach goals is kind of something that I've learned. Just teamwork. Teamwork is something that I didn't necessarily. I mean, I valued it, but I kind of valued doing it by yourself more. But working at Kentucky has helped that a lot. And there's a lot goes into making a school and an athletic department, you know, good or great. It's not just about talent. It's about a lot of other things too. And then um, another person said, "Can you tell us a little bit about your recently published book?" So my book isn't published yet. Is in the works. Kind of like me wanting to do things on my own. Kind of bite me in the butt, but I wanted to get it over with, and so I put it out for pre-order. And then the feedback that I got um, is not quite ready, and it's not quite what I want it to be yet. So I'm still working on it, still in process. So, um, but if you have any other questions about it, you can send me a message. My email is Aisha Foy, AISHAFOY @gmail.com. And then, you know, I can get you on the list or whatever to know about it when it comes out and things like that. So.
Yeah, sorry about that. I missed those two questions. I didn't even see them sitting there. So thank you everybody for joining us today. And if, like Aisha said, if you have questions, feel free to reach out to her. If you need to reach out to us first, I can pass along the information, pass along her contact information to you. So thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you, Aisha, for sharing your message today. It was definitely something good to hear, especially with everything going on in the world today.
Thank
It's a
you all.
great time to figure everything out.
Thank you all. Thanks for listening. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.